there remains confidence in the world that Washington will, at the last hour, get its act.
All of that online at cspan.org in our video library. We'll take you back live as the House is gaveling back in.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Kentucky rise?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks on the legislation and to insert extraneous material on the bill.
Without objection. Pursuant to House Resolution 370 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House and the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 1938. The Chair appoints the gentlelady from Missouri, Ms. Emerson, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for consideration of H.R. 1938, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to direct the President to expedite the consideration and approval of the construction and operation of the Keystone XL oil pipeline and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. General debate shall be confined to the bill and shall not exceed 1 hour, with 30 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Energy and Commerce, 20 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, and 10 minutes equally divided and controlled by the Chair and Ranking Minority Member of the Committee on Natural Resources. Gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Whitfield, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Waxman, each will control 15 minutes. Gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mica, and the gentleman from West Virginia, Mr. Rahal, each will control 10 minutes. Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hastings, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Markey, each will control 5 minutes. The Chair will recognize the gentleman from Kentucky once the House gets to be in order. Gentlemen will suspend. The committee will be in order. Will all members please take their conversations outside? Chair recognizes the gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chairman, I yield myself such time as I may consent.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Chairman, I rise today to support H.R. 1938, the North American Made Energy Security Act, and give a long overdue green light to the Keystone Pipeline XL project. The Keystone expansion project would allow up to 1.29 million barrels per day to flow into refineries in the Midwest and Gulf Coast, a 700,000 barrel per day increase over existing capacity from Canada. More oil means lower prices, and more imports from a stable ally like Canada means less from unstable nations and potential adversaries. According to a study conducted by the Department of Energy—
Gentlemen, suspend, please. Committee is not in order. Chair asks all members to take their conversations outside the committee. Gentleman may proceed.
According to a study conducted for the Department of Energy, the Keystone project has the potential to significantly reduce oil imports from the Middle East. The good news only gets better when one looks at the job impacts of the Keystone project. Construction of the expanded pipeline system alone would create an estimated 20,000 jobs. Unfortunately, the Obama administration continues to delay this project, and there seems to be no end in sight. Let's just look at the timeline to date. In September 2008, TransCanada, the developer of this project, first submitted its application for a presidential permit. The State Department didn't release its draft environmental impact statement until April 2010. After this first step, EPA rejected the draft statement and told the State Department they had to perform more work. After another year, the State Department issued a supplemental draft statement that addressed EPA's concerns. Even then, EPA seems to think the thousands and thousands of pages of objective and honest analysis performed by various federal agencies is not enough. Because of the endless delays, H.R. 1938 is a simple bill that calls on the Obama administration to make a decision on this project by November the 1st, 2011. The administration has stated that they could have a decision by December 16th, 2011, so we're only asking them to speed that up a few months, and we're not saying what the decision should be. At a time when the national average of a gallon of gas is $3.70 per gallon and unemployment is still above 9%, the Obama administration should be doing everything that it can to approve projects expeditiously if they are creating jobs and reducing gasoline prices. H.R. 1938 is a bipartisan bill that cuts through the endless delays and creates a hard deadline for the administration to render a decision on Keystone. It's time to get moving on reducing energy prices, reduce unemployment, and pass this bill. I urge all members to support this important bill, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from California.
Madam Chair, I yield myself 5 minutes.
Gentleman's recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise in opposition to H.R. 1938. This legislation is unnecessary and it's harmful. It cuts short the State Department's ongoing review of the Keystone XL tar sands crude pipeline. It would deny the public an adequate opportunity to comment on whether the pipeline should be built, and it benefits a specific foreign company, TransCanada Corporation, at the expense of the American people. There are really two distinct questions here. Do you think the Keystone XL pipeline is a good idea? And does this legislation make any sense? I happen to think that the Keystone XL pipeline is a bad idea, but even if you support the pipeline, you should oppose this bill. The Keystone XL pipeline would carry a sludge made from Canadian tar sands through the middle of America. In doing so, it would raise gas prices, endanger water supplies, and increase carbon emissions. And that's why it should not be approved. Keystone XL is a highly controversial project. The State Department received over 200,000 comments on the supplemental draft environmental impact statement. Once it's built, we will live with the pipeline and its impacts for 50 years or more. This is a decision we need to get right. Unfortunately, this bill's approach does not get it right. Instead, it says, whatever the risks and cost, just get it done. H.R. 1938 takes the extraordinary step of interfering in an ongoing decision-making process by the Secretary of State. The Secretary is in the midst of determining whether granting the permit requested by TransCanada would be in the national interest. The process for making these permit decisions was established by executive orders issued by President Johnson and President George W. Bush. The State Department says that it plans to issue the final environmental impact statement in mid-August and the final decision by the end of the year. That's when the applicants say they need a decision. This bill overrides the executive orders and all other federal law. It short-circuits the decision-making process. It requires the President to make a decision within 30 days of the final environmental impact statement. This effectively eliminates the opportunity for public comment on the national interest determination, and it cuts the time for consulting with other agencies by 2/3. That doesn't make sense, especially when you consider the potential risks. My greatest concern is that Keystone XL will make us more reliant on the dirtiest source of fuel currently available. On a life cycle basis, tar sands emit far more carbon pollution than conventional oil, almost 40% more by some estimates. That's because it takes huge amounts of energy to take something the consistency of tar, which they mine, and turn it into synthetic oil. We should be reducing our oil dependence and using cleaner fuels, but Keystone is a big step in the wrong direction. There are many other concerns, including safety. Today is the one-year anniversary of the Kalamazoo River oil pipeline spill, and 30 miles of the river are still closed. A few weeks ago, there was a massive oil pipeline spill into the Yellowstone River, and TransCanada, Keystone XL's owner and operator, has had 12 spills on the first Keystone pipeline in its first year of operation. Keystone 1 was even shut down by the Department of Transportation as, quote, hazardous to life, property, and the environment, end quote. The risks from spills are exacerbated with the Keystone XL because it is routed through the Ogallala Aquifer, which spans 8 states and provides drinking water for 2 million people. With all these risks, the benefits are unclear. A study commissioned by DOE found that we will have excess pipeline capacity from Canada for the next decade or more, even without Keystone XL. And Keystone XL will likely raise, not lower, gas prices. In its permit application, TransCanada told the Canadian government that by raising prices for crude oil in the Midwest, Keystone XL will increase revenue for Canadian producers by $2 to $4 billion a year. But even if you believe we should build Keystone XL, you should oppose this legislation. If you think the project has merit, let it be yield myself another 30 seconds. Let it be approved on the merits, not rush to judgment without public comment. Cutting the public out of the process and ramming this through will only increase opposition to this project. I urge my colleagues to vote no on H.R. 1938, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, I yield at this time 2.5 minutes to the Chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Mr. Upton of Michigan.
Gentleman from Michigan is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, national unemployment rests at 9.2%, but it's even higher in my state of Michigan at 10.5%. Gasoline costs $3.80 a gallon or more in many areas, up $1 from last year. Political unrest halfway around the world disrupts the flow of oil to markets, causing prices to rise. Most leaders in this situation would be searching for a project that would create jobs, help bring down gas prices, and yes, provide a stable and secure source of oil to replace imports from dangerous parts of the world. Our President is being handed such a project on a silver platter, and he's dangerously close to letting it slip through his fingers. Our northern ally, Canada, has discovered an oil resource comparable to the size of Saudi Arabia, and they want to send the oil here to the United States. 5 major labor unions have thrown their support behind the pipeline because it's going to create more than 100,000 jobs. Yet this administration has allowed the permit application to languish for nearly 3 years, even saying that they were inclined to support it almost a year ago in October. This pipeline, the Keystone XL, if approved, would dramatically improve our energy security. According to DOE, the pipeline would essentially eliminate our Middle East oil imports. It would provide for a massive influx of stable oil into the market, something desperately needed as threatened supplies in North Africa send prices into orbit. This country needs the President to make a decision on Keystone XL's permit. The uncertainty has gone on too long, and if we don't act, these energy supplies will go someplace else. That's why we have this legislation, H.R. 1938. This bipartisan bill doesn't tell the President how to decide. It just requires them to make a decision. I commend my colleagues Lee Terry and Ross for finding a common sense and, yes, bipartisan solution. If we don't build this pipeline, Canada will find another buyer. The Chinese have expressed significant interest in Alberta's oil sands. Are we going to stand by and watch China receive imports from our ally while we're forced to rely on imports from unstable countries? I sure hope not. While I believe construction of this pipeline is necessary and important, I know it has to be done safely. Last year, 20,000 barrels of oil did spill through a creek that runs through my district, and I've made pipeline safety a priority in our committee, and just this week we're going to be moving forward on an effective pipeline safety legislation to protect the environment and, yes, our communities. This legislation will ensure that crucial energy supplies, like the oil received from Canada, is transported safely throughout the country. We need a yes vote on this bipartisan vote. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time's expired. Gentleman from California.
Madam Chair, I yield to my fellow Californian, a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Lois Capps, 2 minutes.
Gentlewoman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank my colleague for yielding, and Madam Chair, I rise to speak against this hazardous piece of legislation. H.R. 1938 directs the President to allow Canadian oil companies to build a dangerous pipeline through American lands and waters. H.R. 1938 would expedite the pipeline's permitting process, despite a long list of unaddressed concerns from numerous communities. The environmental impacts of this pipeline, which would extend over 1,600 miles through 6 states, have not been thoroughly considered, and we know that this project has the potential to significantly impact the environment. We've already seen what damage can be done. There have been 12 spills along TransCanada's Keystone Pipeline in its first 12 months of its operation, and the Keystone XL pipeline will deliver some of the most destructive oil on the planet. Tar sands oil contain higher concentrations of toxic chemicals like sulfur, nickel, nitrogen, and lead than conventional oil. And a barrel of tar sands oil emits up to 3 times more climate-disrupting gases than conventional oil. Building this pipeline would be the greenhouse equivalent of adding roughly 6.5 million passenger vehicles to a highway, or constructing 12 new coal-fired power plants. This major concern arises about the negative impacts of the pipeline on public health and the environment. At a time when we must find ways to end our dependence on fossil fuels, it is simply not in the national interest to deepen our reliance on one of the most dirtiest forms of oil on the planet. I believe that conducting the appropriate analysis under NEPA, which cannot be done properly if it's rushed, will make this abundantly clear. We need to be moving forward by supporting clean, renewable energy in this country. And while the President is calling for a reduction in oil imports, this bill calls for an increase. For all these reasons, I urge my colleagues to vote no against H.R. 1938. I yield back to the balance.
Gentlewoman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, at this time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the author of the bill, Mr. Terry.
Gentleman from Nebraska is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This bill is simple, but the ramifications may be significant. Let me set the record straight. I want to get off OPEC oil. Receiving as much as 700,000 barrels of oil from our northern neighbor, Canada, makes us more energy secure, more energy independent. The application for this pipeline, an efficient way to move oil from one part to another part, the most efficient and safest, was filed almost 3 years ago. We're just a month shy of its 3-year anniversary, whereas it's usually around 24 months, 18 months to have something like this approved. Now, this bill sets a hard date of November 1, 2011 for the President to make a determination of national interest on this pipeline. Let me repeat. All we're asking is that the President make his decision by November 1st. Enough time has passed. Now, what would you see if this project moves forward? It will be a $13 billion construction project, privately funded. It will create at least 20,000 direct, high-paying labor construction jobs. It will generate $6.5 billion in new personal income for U.S. workers and their families. It will spur more than $20 billion in new spending for the U.S. economy. It will stimulate more than $585 million in new state and local taxes. It will deliver $5.2 billion in property taxes during the estimated lifespan of this pipeline. Now, we have heard from two speakers already about the environmental impacts. I come from Nebraska. I want to make sure that this pipeline is safe as it passes through an environmentally sensitive area called the Sandhills and over the Ogallala Aquifer. There has been draft environmental impact statements. There has been supplements, and it has shown that it can be done safely. This is the single most studied pipeline in the history of the United States. I believe it's in our national security interests. It's about jobs, economy, and energy security. I yield back the remaining part of my time.
Gentleman from California.
Madam Chair, I yield at this time 2 minutes to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my colleague, the Ranking Member of Energy and Commerce, for yielding me time. I rise in strong support of H.R. 1938. I represent a district at the end of this proposed pipeline in southeast Texas. I have 5 refineries in our district, and this will give them an alternative for crude oil to keep those refineries running. North American oil sands are a vital source of energy for the U.S. with skyrocketing fuel prices. I believe it's imperative for the U.S. to diversify our energy sources by exploring alternatives such as the oil sands in Canada. As the largest single exporter of oil to the U.S. and a stable energy partner, Canada has helped to reduce our dependence on energy supplies from unfriendly nations, and this partnership should continue and be encouraged. The pipeline owner, TransCanada, has agreed to comply with 57 additional special conditions developed by the Pipeline and Hazardous Safety Materials Administration for the Keystone Pipeline project. The supplemental environmental impact statement on the project has gone so far that the incorporation of the conditions will result in a project that has a larger degree of safety over any other typically constructed domestic oil pipeline under the current code or law, and larger degree of safety along the entire length of the pipeline, similar to whatever we have in high consequence areas. Additionally, an independent study showed that the $7 billion Keystone Pipeline expected to directly create 20,000 high-wage manufacturing construction jobs in the U.S. So not only will this project help our energy security, but it will help our recovering economy by creating thousands of jobs. And I'm constantly hearing from my building trades in the Houston area about their support for this pipeline and the bill. And yet none of this matters very fairly and doesn't say what the administration's determination should be. Instead, it just says expedite the decision. It's been too long once the environmental review is complete. And I appreciate the Department of State's recent announcement that they're on track to make a final decision by December 31st. Maybe that wouldn't have been announced last week if we hadn't had this bill moving in the House. But I do appreciate the effort, and I support the bill and encourage my colleagues to support it. Now, I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, at this time I'd like to recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Olson, for 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Texas is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank my chairman for yielding time and for his leadership on this important issue. Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 1938, the North American-made Energy Security Act. This bill is a bona fide jobs bill and will have a positive economic impact on our entire country. The Keystone XL pipeline will stretch from our neighbor and ally Canada through North Dakota, through Montana, the intersection of North Dakota and South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, all the way down to my home state of Texas, ultimately transporting nearly 1.3 million barrels of oil per day, 1.3 million barrels per day, and creating hundreds of thousands of jobs on its journey to the Gulf. The Keystone XL pipeline has the potential to create up to 624,000 jobs over the next 15 years, including 50,000 in the Lone Star State, with an economic impact valued in the billions. 170 companies alone in Texas would serve as suppliers. These are real jobs for real Americans. This is real energy security for America. The Department of Energy has determined that this pipeline could, as a quote, essentially eliminate, unquote, our dependence upon Middle or Eastern oil sources. The Obama administration has dragged its feet for over 2 years, insisting on delaying the project with more environmental studies and regulatory hurdles. If we don't break through this regulatory wall, China is more than happy to take our place. The studies have been done, Madam Speaker. It's time to approve the permit. H.R. 1938 will ensure that the administration does just that. The Keystone XL pipeline will strengthen America's economy, reduce our dependence on Middle Eastern oil, and produce...
Expired.
10 seconds.
Yield the gentleman additional 1 minute.
Gentleman's recognized.
I thank the chairman. In conclusion, the Keystone XL pipeline will strengthen America's economy, reduce our dependence on Middle Eastern oil, and produce hundreds of thousands of jobs right here in America. It's a win-win-win. I urge my colleagues to support this very important energy security bill that creates jobs, jobs, jobs right here in America. I thank you and yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California.
Madam Chair, I'm pleased at this time to yield to the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Connolly, 2 minutes.
Gentleman from Virginia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This bill is a charade. It purports to increase oil production in America, yet it would direct construction of a pipeline designed to export oil. There is already one Keystone pipeline from the tar sands of Alberta into America. That pipeline terminates in Oklahoma and supplies America with oil derived from tar sands. If the Republicans wanted to bring a bill to the floor that would increase domestic access to this oil, then it would support it. In fact, Mr. Markey and I introduced an amendment to ensure that oil from the Keystone pipeline would benefit American consumers, and it wasn't allowed on the floor. The Republican leadership wouldn't even let this amendment come for a debate. They claim this pipeline will deliver oil to America, but have used a backdoor procedural trick to block debate on it. The amendment Mr. Markey and I introduced was the only germane amendment which was blocked by the Rules Committee. Why? Because it gives the lie to the real intent of this bill: oil for export, not for domestic consumption. Our amendment met all the parliamentary tests necessary to come to the floor and didn't increase spending. All it would have done was to ensure that Keystone pipeline oil would flow to America rather than China, Cuba, or some other country. The fact that the Republicans blocked this simple amendment shows that the bill before us today isn't about energy security or gas prices, but about oil company profits and exports. It isn't surprising that leadership would put big oil profits ahead of consumers. This is the same caucus that's driving our nation toward default while they refuse to close tax loopholes for oil companies. This is the same Republican caucus that gutted Clean Air and Clean Water earlier this week, with 36 policy riders in the Interior Environmental Appropriations Act. The same Republicans slashed funding for the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, our cops on the beat to stop oil speculation. The same Republicans who opposed using the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to burst the speculative bubble in oil prices. They've marched in lockstep with big oil companies since they took over the House majority, and today they're attempting to pass legislation that would take gas from America and send it overseas. We're being given a false proposition in this legislation, and I urge my colleagues to oppose it.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from...
Ask him to yield to me.
We yield.
Well,
Gentleman's recognized.
I must say that we've heard comments on the floor and in committee on this bill that it's going to allow us to become less dependent, or maybe not even dependent at all on Saudi Arabia, that we'll be able to be self-sufficient and have lower prices because of this pipeline. But the truth of the matter is that some economists believe that this oil pipeline will bring oil to Texas, and that oil either will be refined or shipped as crude oil to China. It doesn't help us to have any excess oil if it's going to be picked up and shipped to China. I think that we need to always have in mind that the United States of America uses 25% of the world's oil resources, and we have 2% of the source of those resources, the reserves here in the United States. We are always going to be dependent on imported oil unless we start moving away from oil itself. I thank the gentleman for yielding to me.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, how much time do I have remaining?
Gentleman from Kentucky has 4 minutes remaining, and the gentleman from California has 2.5 minutes remaining.
4 minutes?
Yes, sir.
This time I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Louisiana, a member of the Energy and Power Subcommittee, Mr. Scalise.
Gentleman from Louisiana is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the gentleman from Kentucky for yielding. I rise in support of this jobs bill, the Keystone bill, that actually opens up another 700,000 barrels a day coming in to the United States from Canada. Now, first of all, this oil will be going to United States refineries in Texas to refine oil for Americans. And on top of that, it'll create another 20,000 American jobs. And if you look at what that means, first of all, China wants to get that oil from Canada. So if we don't agree to this, if the President, for whatever reason, you know, because radicals don't want that oil coming in, they don't like oil at all, so I guess they're going to ride around on bicycles, and that's going to get them where they need to be. We've got to live in reality. We've got a demand in this country for oil, and it's either going to come from Middle Eastern countries, many of whom don't like us, or we can bring more of it in from not only from America, where the United States has more reserves that they won't allow us to utilize, but here Canada's saying 700,000 barrels a day can come into America, where we can create those good jobs. And what does that really mean? That means we don't have to buy 700,000 barrels a day from Middle Eastern countries. Now let's talk about the trade gap. Biggest part of our trade gap is all the money that we send to these Middle Eastern countries and other countries because we don't produce enough of our own in America because of these radical policies. So you bring that 700,000 barrels a day from Canada, that's $25 billion a year. $25 billion a year that we're not sending to Middle Eastern countries who don't like us. And if you want to talk about a trade gap, when we trade with Canada, think about this. When we trade with Canada, 90 cents on the dollar comes back to the United States of America. Canada is a great ally, a good friend of ours. It's a good trading relationship. We get 90% of that money back. When we trade with Middle Eastern countries, buying their oil, which we do right now, less than half of that money comes back to the United States. So if you want to talk about this from dollars and cents, from jobs, from national security, all of that adds up to passing this bill to build this relationship, build this pipeline with Canada, who says they want to partner with us. Now, if we turn them down, they'll go to China, but they want this relationship. They want to increase our energy security and create those jobs. And I hope we pass the bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from California.
Madam Chair, I was a bit confused when you said how much time was on each side. Could you?
Gentleman from California has 2.5 minutes remaining.
2.5 minutes?
Gentleman from Kentucky has 2 minutes remaining.
I see. Well, I'm pleased at this time to yield 2 minutes from to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Johnson.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let's connect the dots here. The Koch brothers, who financed the election of 2010, won, and they won big time. They own a facility up in Canada that will be the place where the tar sand oil will be converted into a form that can then be shipped to the Gulf Coast by this pipeline. Now, all that money that they put in, millions and millions of dollars into the last election, is coming back as a return on the investment. And it's a big return, ladies and gentlemen. This pipeline is going to cost $13 billion. $13 billion. Who's paying for it? The Koch brothers? No, not the Koch brothers. The American people are on the hook for the $13 billion to build this pipeline for the Koch brothers and for their cohorts, Exxon, Mobil, Shell, BP, and all of the rest of the big boys, whose tax credits and tax breaks they are protecting without hesitation. So they're getting it both ways, ladies and gentlemen. They're getting it on the front end, and they're getting it on the back end in terms of not having to pay any taxes. And I think it's I think we need to look at during this debt ceiling debate what our priorities are as a nation and what our values are. Are we simply there to do the bidding of big business and the oil companies, or are we here to do the business for the American people?
Gentleman's time has expired.
And I yield back. I'll rest my case.
Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, it's my understanding I have a couple of minutes left. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Colorado.
Gentleman from Colorado is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the chairman for yielding, and thank you, Madam Speaker. Today I rise to speak on the importance of the Keystone XL pipeline, H.R. 1938. One of my goals here in Congress has been to help advance projects like this, projects that will help advance domestic sources of energy. I'm continuously awed at how much potential we have here at home and our neighbors, and how relatively simple it would be to advance policies that would make us more energy independent. However, I'm continuously baffled at how difficult this administration has made it to wean ourselves off of Middle East oil, to create more jobs here at home. In fact, this bill alone, in committee I learned that it will create 6,000 new jobs in Colorado over the next 4 years, good-paying construction jobs, for example. I'm appalled at the regulatory burdens, or almost worse sometimes, the inaction on the part of our administration that has led us down the path of insecurity and dependence on many countries that have animosity towards us. Not only do we have the resources in our own backyard, but we have the ability to utilize friendly and willing neighbors like Canada to import oil into the United States. H.R. 1938, the North American Made Energy Security Act, would direct the President to simply make a decision on the Keystone XL permit and hopefully move us in the direction of energy security. American jobs, American made.
Gentleman's time has expired.
I urge the passage of this bill.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from California. Gentleman from California has 30 seconds remaining.
Okay. Madam Chair and members of this House, climate change is real. We're experiencing its effects. According to the Washington Post, almost 2,000 high-temperature records have been broken in towns and cities across America since the start of the month. Another 4,300 records have been set for high overnight temperatures. I don't think that we should short-circuit consideration of a pipeline that increases our consumption of tar sands crude up to 40% higher carbon pollution. That is not in our national interest. Even the National Farmers Union is urging opposition to this legislation. They say that NFU continues to have serious concern regarding the Keystone XL pipeline as currently proposed, and we believe all necessary time should be given for public review and analysis of the options for the proposed project. Congress should not fix a hard deadline for this process to be completed. I urge a no vote on this legislation.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Kentucky.
Madam Chair, I would remind everyone that in America today we're using about 22 million barrels of oil a day. We're producing about 7 million barrels of oil a day in this country. We need more efficiency. There's no question about that to get better gas mileage. But we also have to recognize that we have a responsibility to bring more product into the United States. To do so from Canada would be good for the American people. It would create, it's been said, 20,000 construction jobs at a time when unemployment is 9.2%. And we also understand that if that pipeline does not come to America, it's going to go to West Canada, and then that oil will be going to China. And we have to remain competitive in the global marketplace if we're going to create jobs in America. And that's what this pipeline is about. And I would remind everyone that we're not short-circuiting any studies. Comprehensive studies have been made. environmental impact statements have been examined, and I would urge everyone to support this important legislation and would yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman's time has expired. For what purposes, gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
To claim my time in support of the bill.
Gentleman's recognized.
I thank the gentlelady, and I yield my time I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
I rise in support of H.R. 1938, the North American Made Energy Security Act. As a member of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee and as the chairman of the Subcommittee on Railroads, Pipelines, and Hazardous Materials, I appreciate the hard work my colleague from Nebraska, Mr. Terry, and the Energy and Commerce Committee, his colleagues, have done to bring this bill forward, in which we share jurisdiction. This important legislation directs the President to expedite the consideration and approval of the construction and operation of the Keystone XL oil pipeline. This important project has been delayed for far too long, and as my colleague from Nebraska pointed out, it's 1 month away from its 3-year anniversary from its introduction. The time has come for the President to finally move forward and make a decision. This legislation doesn't force the President to make a yes or no decision, but it does require the President to issue a final order granting or denying the presidential permit for the Keystone XL pipeline no later than November 1st, 2011. This $7 billion, 1,700-mile Keystone XL pipeline would link Canada's tar sands region with refineries in the Midwest and Texas. The economic impacts of the Keystone XL pipeline are immense. Estimates of 465,000 U.S. jobs stemming from the oil sands development by the year 2035. All of my colleagues talk on the House floor about taking action to limit our dependence on oil from unstable areas of the world and foreign governments hostile to the U.S. interests. This is a project that will move us in that direction. Accomplishing that goal also will grow our economy by partnering with our close friend and ally, Canada. The United States has the largest network of energy pipelines of any nation in the world, and the pipelines remain the energy lifelines that power nearly all of our daily activities. The hallmark of America's pipeline network continues to be that it delivers extraordinary volumes of product reliably, safely, efficiently, and economically. Since 1986, the volume of energy products transported through pipelines has increased by 1/3, yet the number of reportable incidents has decreased by 28%. Both government and industry have taken numerous steps to improve pipeline safety over the last 10 years. Safety advocates, environmentalists, and the pipeline industry all agree that the Federal Pipeline Safety Program is working. Later this summer, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will bring a bill to the floor to reauthorize the Federal Pipeline Safety Program. We will work with our colleagues from the Energy and Commerce Committee as we bring our bill to the floor to ensure that safety remains our top priority. That piece of legislation will ensure that pipelines, like the Keystone XL pipeline, will continue to be the safest and most efficient way to move petroleum products and natural gas. But I'm also concerned by what appears to be a bias by some in this body to non-traditional sources of energy. To end our reliance on oil from overseas, we must develop the resources that we have available in North America. That includes the oil sands in Canada and Marcellus Shale natural gas in my home state of Pennsylvania. We must ensure the development of these resources is done responsibly and in an environmentally safe manner, but we cannot hold them back and show a prejudice just because they are unconventional. We simply can't have it both ways. We can't grow our economy and reduce our dependence on foreign oil without developing the resources we have available right here in our own backyard. So in closing, I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1938, and I look forward to continuing work on this important issue, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Serves the balance of his time. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Chair, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Chair, as someone who has the privilege of representing an American-made energy-producing state, I understand the economic benefits of producing energy here at home, and I believe my record on this subject in this body is well documented. I want to begin, of course, by complimenting the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Terry, for his leadership in this legislation, as well as Chairman Mica of my Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and Subcommittee Chairman Brewster and Ranking Member Corrine Brown. I do rise today to express serious concerns regarding the process, or rather lack thereof, that was taken to bring this legislation to the House floor for consideration today. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure has primary jurisdiction over pipeline construction and safety legislation. Following this long-standing precedent, on May 23rd, the Speaker designated the Committee on T&I as the Committee of Primary Jurisdiction of the pending legislation. Yet instead of considering the legislation under regular order, as the committee has always done in the past, Chairman Mica chose to discharge the committee from consideration of the bill. Now, I've served on the Committee on T&I for 34 years, my entire tenure in this body. I cannot think of one instance when this committee, acting as a committee of primary jurisdiction, has discharged its consideration of major legislation in this matter. Not one single instance. The fact is that in the aftermath of several devastating pipeline incidents, there are some legitimate concerns about the potential safety, environmental, and health impacts of transporting heavy crude oil by pipeline. I would have liked to explore those concerns in an open and transparent manner had the committee considered this legislation. With that said, I am optimistic that this is an issue that we can delve into further as we work with Chairman Mica to craft a bill that reauthorizes the nation's pipeline safety program. In the interim, I believe we need to move forward with a decision on a presidential permit for construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. Current plans are for construction activities to begin in the first quarter of 2012 and commercial operation to commence in 2013. The fact is that this pipeline will create thousands of new jobs at a time when unemployment in the construction sector is double the national average. Construction was hard hit by the recession, with the construction industry having lost nearly 2 million jobs since December '07. We need to put these people back to work. Unfortunately, last week, the House Republican leadership piled on the already devastated construction industry and shut down major parts of the Federal Aviation Administration, which will jeopardize $2.5 billion in construction projects, 87,000 American construction jobs, furlough 3,600 FAA aviation engineers, safety analysis, and other career professionals in 35 states, and cost $200 million per week in lost revenue. If the chairman can discharge consideration of this bill and fast-track it to the House floor for a vote, I hope he will do the same with the legislation that Representative Costello and I introduced earlier today to end the Republican-led FAA shutdown to get aviation experts and construction crews back on the clock. While pink slips have already gone out to construction companies from coast to coast yesterday, Republicans seem to have reversed gears and now seem to want to support construction jobs, union jobs, in fact. I congratulate them on the latter. In September 2010, TransCanada announced that it had entered into a project labor agreement for a significant portion of U.S. construction of the proposed Keystone XL pipeline. The agreement, made with 5 labor organizations, the Labor's International Union of North America, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the United Association of Journeymen and Apprentices of the Plumbing and Pipe Fitting Industry of the United States and Canada, the International Union of Operating Engineers, and the Pipeline Contractors Association, will provide TransCanada with a capable, well-trained, and ready workforce in the U.S. to construct the pipeline. During construction, the project is expected to create over 13,000 high-wage union jobs for American workers. Despite the procedural concerns that I've raised, I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
May I inquire as to how much time is remaining?
Gentleman from Pennsylvania has 6.5 minutes remaining. Gentleman from West Virginia has 6 minutes remaining.
This time I'll yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Brown.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I rise in strong support for H.R. 1938. I thank my friend Lee Terry from Nebraska for taking the lead on this important issue. The Keystone XL pipeline is vital to ensuring that the United States is able to meet its demand for oil. Canada is already the single largest source of oil imports for the United States. This pipeline is expected to bring between 830,000 to over 1 million more barrels of Canadian crude to American refineries each and every day, helping to reduce our dependency on oil from unfriendly nations. At a time when unemployment continues to hover near 10%, this project is expected to add close to 13,000 new American jobs. Until we're able to maximize our domestic sources of oil, we will have to rely upon imports. Canada is one of our strongest allies and a stable democracy with a strong free market economy. Canada serves as an example of how we should be exploring and developing our own domestic resources. Again, I thank my friend from Nebraska for working so diligently on this issue. I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1938. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from West Virginia.
Madam Chair, I yield 3 minutes to the distinguished lady from Florida, the ranking member, Corrine Brown.
Gentlewoman from Florida is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And let me just thank publicly the ranking member, Mr. Ray Hall, for his leadership. You know, I am very upset that for the first time after 21 extensions that the FAA was shut down Friday night, jeopardizing $2.5 billion in construction projects, 87,000 American construction jobs, and furloughing at least 3,600 FAA aviation engineers. I mean, this is really a sad time for the Committee on Transportation. We have always worked together in a bipartisan way to make sure that we move America and keep people working. This is America, and I want to say I fully believe it's possible to build the Keystone Pipeline in a way that improves our access to crude oil and put thousands of people to work while protecting citizens from hazardous spills. But we have to hold the industry feet to the fire and make sure that they take every possible precaution to build this pipeline. The Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration must ensure full oversight in every step of the way in developing this pipeline and must ensure that it is completed safely. I want to ask Chairman Mica and the ranking member to ensure that the committee fulfills its oversight role by regularly reviewing the construction of the pipeline to ensure that it is capable of transporting these most damaging products. I want to take this time to express my disappointment that Transportation and Infrastructure Committee waived its jurisdiction over the Keystone Pipeline legislation that was developed by the Energy and Commerce Committee. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure is the committee of primary jurisdiction over pipeline and construction and safety legislation and is the primary committee to refer for the Keystone legislation. Just last week, our subcommittee held a hearing on the spill in Montana and are continuing to monitor the progress in cleaning up the spill and compensation those who were harmed. The legislation we are debating today should have been strongly vetted by our committee, and I join Ranking Member Ray Hall in urging the committee to hold hearings and mark up on any legislation within our jurisdiction. Our Railroad and Pipeline Subcommittee held at least 5 hearings last session concerning pipeline safety and found significant problems with reporting and inspection, as well as unhealthy relationship between the pipeline industry and the agency regulating them. Moreover, much like the sewer and water infrastructure in this country, much of the pipeline infrastructure is reaching the end of its useful life, and we are going to need to make significant investments in improving these access if we are going to accomplish the goals of both delivering critical petroleum to the states and protecting citizens from the danger of hazardous pipelines and spill and deadly explosion. We need to develop new technology and strategies for improving safety in highly populated areas and now located above the aging pipelines. With the high unemployment rate this country is currently facing, we should be hiring and training inspectors. May I have an additional minute, Mr. Ranking Member?
I yield the gentlelady additional minute.
Gentlewoman's recognized additional minute.
We should be hiring and training inspectors and putting construction workers to replace this aging pipeline infrastructure in the U.S. gas and oil industry. Let me rush to say that the Republican plan in their deficit reduction plan are protecting the big oil and the oil companies that made over $1 trillion in the last 10 years. 310 by Exxon, 552 by Chevron, 207 by Shell and BP. I mean, we are giving them a tax break of they made $1 trillion, but yet we are trying to take senior citizens' retirement and Social Security. You know, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time, and I want to submit their profit record to the record. Thank you.
Covered under general leave. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
At this time, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady.
Gentleman from Texas, recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank Chairman Schuster for his time. I might point out that our energy companies are making profits, major profits, overseas, because that's where this White House has chased our jobs and our energy production. Today, we're saying yes to American-made, North American-made energy. The Keystone XL pipeline will increase our access to safe and secure energy supplies from our neighbors to the north, not from the Middle East, not from unstable parts of the world. When completed, the pipeline will bring millions of barrels of oil into our Midwest and Gulf Coast refineries and thousands of jobs, good-paying American-made jobs with them. Unemployment's high, prices at the pump are high. We've seen the effects of delay of American-made energy, and if you haven't seen that delay, ask our Gulf Coast workers who've lost their jobs and been hurt because of the permatorium in the Gulf of Mexico. We have part of the solution before us today, more North American-made energy, solution for safe, affordable energy from a strong trading partner and ally, and a solution that supports good old American energy jobs. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from West Virginia.
I'm prepared to close this
we have one more speaker. So,
would the gentleman from West Virginia like to reserve?
At this time, I yield 4 minutes to the chairman of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, Mr. Mica.
Gentleman's recognized for 4 minutes.
Madam Speaker and my colleagues, I rise in strong support of the proposal by gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Terry. We should all be thanking Mr. Terry for this initiative. Not only are people in this country hit by incredible unemployment, economic challenges, a dysfunctional Congress, but if they go to the local service station to fill up with gasoline, they're paying record prices. I woke up this morning and I heard one of the commentators said, that was interviewing an expert on, energy, and he predicted that 1 year from now we'll be paying between $4.50 and $5.50 for a gallon of gasoline. Now, you just heard the ranking members criticize me for fast-tracking this legislation. I guess I beat some kind of record, never having waived before. I'm telling you, I will waive this and anything else we need to do to get this country energy independent and find a way for the average citizen to be able to afford energy. We need a short-term plan, and that's bringing energy into the United States without being held hostage to people like the regimes in the Middle East or Venezuela. This pipeline will bring in 1.3 barrels of oil per day. That exceeds what comes in from Venezuela. It exceeds what comes in from Saudi Arabia. How frustrated the people of America must be. Then, of course, I was attacked on FAA, a lack of reauthorization. How could they attack me? 4 years they controlled this incredible numbers, huge numbers to do anything in the House, huge numbers to do anything in the Senate. 4 years. I authored the last FAA authorization in 2003 that expired in 2007, and they sat on it and never did anything. They did 17 extensions. They forced us to do 3. And I'm telling you, I've had it. If they've done this before in a different way, it's not going to be done that way anymore. We sent them last Wednesday an extension, and it was a clean extension. It had one provision, which they passed unanimously, and they don't like part of that one provision that stops funding of essential air service subsidies, federal taxpayer subsidies in excess of $1,000. So for 3 airports getting their passengers are being paid a subsidy of $1,500 to $3,700 3 airports, they're closing down the FAA. They've had it since last Wednesday, and they sat on it. So I don't care how we've done things before. We're going to do things differently. I'll be in charge of the committee at least through next year, and I'm going to find a way to do things. We're going to get reasonable energy to the American people, and a year from now, mark your calendar. We didn't mandate that they build the pipeline, and I want the pipeline built with every safety consideration. Yes, the Obama administration shouldn't be asleep at the track like they were with the Gulf oil spill. When they issued the permit, stamped it in just a few days. You know, they issued more permits for deep water drilling in their short term in office, and then closed down the rest of the access to energy across the United States, and actually issued more deep water permits in their first few months in office than the entire Bush administration. And then we're asleep at the switch when they should have been inspecting that procedure. And they should inspect this. This doesn't say you must build a pipeline. It sets a deadline for a response from this administration. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back.